Okay, so tell me about ELDOA. What is it?
Okay, so ELDOA is a method of exercise to help create space for the joints.
Okay.
That's the big goal. There's a couple of goals, but the big goal for the ELDOA is to try to create, it's an exercise for the joints. So you're trying to open the space for, say, some segments in the spine. You can do an ELDOA for each level, of each junction of the spine. You have 24 mobile segments. You can do an ELDOA for your shoulder joint. You can do an ELDOA for the hip. So basically, you're trying to open the space for the joint for 1 minute. It was created by a French osteopath. The osteopaths are manual medicine therapists, so they're just like a higher level of anatomy and biomechanics of, like, you know, in the manual therapy world. So they treat the visceral organs, they treat the cranium, the cranial bones.
Okay.
So that's what osteopathy is in Europe and Canada. His upcoming, as far as Guy, is, you know, through the 60s, 70s, he basically had trained as he was a high-level athlete in the beginning. Okay. He was a physical trainer and then became a physical therapist,
Gotcha.
then a medical doctor, practiced medicine for 1 year after going to school for 8, and then began really leaning into osteopathic studies and obtained multiple osteopathic degrees. And said, okay, this is the reason he went that route, is this is more holistic, this is more complex, it's more logical. Medicine is very linear, and he didn't want any part of that. So he started to learn some techniques, and he's a very brilliant mind. Plus, he had the background to go with it. And at the time, everybody was speaking of back pain. How do you correct back pain?
How do you deal with that?
So he was basically educating himself on a lot of different methodologies, and he synthesized these methodologies and created the ELDOA out of it. So it's kind of a bit of how it came about, and it's fantastic. But it's not a lot of people that think they think everything we do is ELDOA. Honestly, it's literally the last 5 to 10 minutes of my sessions.
Okay.
You know, primarily, I mean, I had a brand new lady come in for a shoulder. Yeah. The majority that I gave her was awareness exercises, reinforcement exercises, a few stretches lightly. Yeah. Because she has a fire in her shoulder, like tendonitis. Sure. And so I basically, and I think she has a little bit of a tear, so I gave her reinforcement exercises. I didn't give her any ELDOA, but I gave her some awareness because I am going to give her an ELDOA. Okay. So that would be an example. I mean, she's got 45 minutes of work to do every day, and she does one little awareness exercise for 1 minute for the ELDOA. So it's a very small part of what we do, but it's also a very big part of what we do.
Yeah, and you had talked to me earlier about the transfer to the actual ELDOA exercises. Like, there is buildup. It's not just like what you said. You don't go straight into it. You do the awareness exercises, and there's so much more because it is a holistic approach at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a complex exercise to do. There's a lot of different factors and things that you have to do at one time to achieve it. So, and they call that factors of progression. Because if you just put somebody in the picture that's in the book and go A to Z, it's not very friendly. And so to try to build on it and to make it perfect, and then once you're in that position, now the 1 minute begins. So, and it might take a minute or 2 minutes to kind of get into that position, and then you put the person in the position, and then all of a sudden they stop breathing because there's like 13 things going on.
All of a sudden they're like, "Oh man, this is tough." Yeah,
it's very intense, and it's a stretch for the body, but not. There's more contraction going on. You felt it.
And I was gonna that leads to the next question is, how does that differ? The people would think it would be similar to yoga. I guess if they saw pictures, if they saw videos, but how does it differ? Because it's not.
So you're using the factors of progression. They're static postures that are held for 1 minute. Use the factors of progression to get into the posture, and then you hold it for 1 minute. And you can do that, say, at the bottom of the spine for L4, L5, or L3, L4. The very bottom of your spine, in the lumbar spine. So you can do the postures for any level that you choose. And they're held for 1 minute with the goal to open the space for the joint. But you also create proprioception for the spine. You're creating postural strength because you have to use your postural muscles to hold you up. But the real goal is to open the space for the disc and the nerve root and the facet joints in the back of the spine.
Yeah, and personally, when I did it, the big difference I noticed is the idea. The proprioception was a very real thing because as you're in these postures, you're tightening everything, and you really have to. When you were correcting my movement, the hands had to be in a certain position, your feet had to be in a certain position, and I was more amazed with like how it tackles a mind-muscle connection to another degree than if you did like a bicep concentric curl at the gym.
Yeah.
Like you're just doing this in the gym. People say that's mind-muscle connection, but this gives you spatial awareness.
You're really waking things up. And like my son, you know, he's done this stuff since he's young. He's 14 now.
Yeah.
But one thing he says after the class is the next day, he's like, I cannot slouch. And I'm like, that's your proprioceptors. That's your ligaments in your spine telling you, hey, you folded over. And he's and you build a little postural strength because you're having to work these muscles for a minute for each posture, but you might do whatever 5, 6, 7 postures in an entire class. And the class is only 45 minutes long for me, and I usually gear it toward the spine, but sometimes I do some stuff for the hip, sometimes I do some ELDOAs for the ribs. I rarely do the shoulder, but you know, every now and then I'll do like, you know, shoulder, hip, rib cage, but primarily I gear the classes for the spine, lumbar, thoracic, cervical spine, because that's what most people are dealing with. They're dealing with back pain, they're dealing with postural dysfunction, they're having to commute, they're having to sit at desk, and so it's to negate all of the with their subjective